September 7th, 2010. Rifa, Bahrain. A national team steps onto the pitch for an international friendly, wearing Togo's colors, carrying Togo's flag, playing under Togo's name. There's just one problem. None of them are from Togo. The Bahrain coach watches them warm up and immediately knows something's wrong. Quote, "These players are not fit enough to play 90 minutes. Bahrain scores. The referee waves off the goal. Offside. Bahrain scores again. Waved off. Offside. Bahrain scores a third time. Waved off. Offside. 5 goals disallowed. All offside calls against the home team. The match ends 3-0. Bahrain wins. Barely. And back in Lomé, the capital of Togo, officials watch the news in absolute shock. Because Togo's Football Federation didn't send a team to Bahrain. They didn't authorize the match. They don't recognize a single player on that field. Someone had sent a fake national team. Imposters wearing jerseys, playing an official FIFA-sanctioned match, rigging the result for betting syndicates. And the man who organized it? Wilson Raj Perumal, a Singaporean criminal who FIFA called the most prolific match fixer in history. A man who claimed he rigged World Cup qualifiers, Olympic tournaments, continental championships, hundreds of matches across 5 continents. A man who walked into locker rooms at halftime, told coaches to sit down, and personally instructed national teams how to lose. A man who stayed invisible for 2 decades, moving between countries under fake names, buying referees, recruiting defenders, building the largest match-fixing syndicate ever discovered. In May 2025, Wilson Raj Perumal was finally sentenced to 11 years in a Hungarian prison. Not for match-fixing, for human trafficking. This is the complete story. The rise, the empire, the betrayal, and the final reckoning. This is Wilson Raj Perumal's case. Wilson Raj Perumal was born on July 31st, 1965, in rural Singapore, into a family that struggled. By his teenage years, he'd already accumulated a criminal record, with petty offenses and small-time fraud, enough to disqualify him from mandatory military service. Perumal wasn't interested in going straight. He was interested in patterns, and in the late 1980s, he found the pattern that would define his life. Illegal football betting. At the time, Singapore and Malaysia shared a joint football league where matches were low profile, players were underpaid, and illegal bookmakers operated openly. Perumal didn't just watch, he studied, seeing something others missed. Football wasn't random, it was controllable. A Malaysian cabinet minister later estimated that fixers manipulated over 70% of matches in that league. A system so corrupt, it eventually collapsed. But by then, Perumal had learned everything he needed to know. He started small, running errands for Singapore-based syndicates tied to Chinese triads, delivering cash, setting up meetings, and learning who could be bought. He discovered the formula that would make him millions. Low salaries, high trust, and zero oversight. A second-division goalkeeper, earning $300 a month, could be offered $5,000 to let in goals at the right time. A referee in a struggling Eastern European league could be bought for $10,000 to award a penalty in the 60th minute. Perumal wasn't inventing match fixing. It had existed for decades, but he industrialized it, turning it into a science. By the mid-1990s, he wasn't just working for syndicates. He was running his own operations, with a major advantage: the internet. Suddenly, Perumal could see matches from around the world, identifying vulnerable countries, underpaid leagues, and desperate federations. He registered a company, started emailing football associations, and began building relationships. His first international attempt in 1997, a friendly between Zimbabwe and Bosnia-Herzegovina, failed as players didn't follow through. But Perumal learned, getting better at selecting targets, building trust, and ensuring players understood the consequences of backing out. Then came his first major attempt, not in some obscure league, but in England. In 1995, Perumal traveled to England to fix 2 FA Cup matches, attempting to bribe goalkeepers Ian Bennett and Dimitri Karin, both of whom refused. But the attempt showed Perumal's ambition. He wasn't thinking small, he was thinking Premier League, World Cup, Olympics. By the early 2000s, he had the contacts and the cash to make it happen. That same year, 1995, Perumal was convicted in Singapore for bribery and sentenced to 12 months. In 1999, he received 26 months for referee corruption, and in 2000, more time for assaulting a player. Most criminals would stop, but Perumal saw prison as networking. Every sentence brought new contacts, new fixers, new ideas, and when he got out, he went bigger. By the mid-2000s, Perumal had perfected his system, approaching players slowly, never rushed, building trust over months. He offered small favors first: tickets to games, introductions to agents, cash gifts with no strings attached. Then, when the player trusted him, he'd make the ask. Let in a goal, miss a penalty, or take a yellow card at a specific time. And the player, already compromised by accepting earlier gifts, would agree. This wasn't just bribery. This was psychological manipulation, slow corruption, building dependency. Perumal wasn't just fixing matches. He was building a machine, a network that stretched from Singapore to Finland, from South Africa to Central America. And in 2007, that machine went fully international, because that's when Perumal became a key operator in what Interpol would later call the world's most notorious match-fixing syndicate. Led by a man named Dan Tan Seet Eng, together, they were about to target an entire continent. By 2007, Wilson Raj Perumal wasn't working alone anymore. He had become a key operator in a massive Singapore-based syndicate. This syndicate was allegedly led by Dan Tan Seet Eng, a businessman who coordinated betting operations across Asia and Europe. Dan Tan directed the money, while Perumal handled the ground operations. And these operations were massive. Perumal's role was coordination. He organized friendlies, contacted federations, and traveled to meet players and officials. He made sure matches ended exactly as the syndicate predicted, manipulating outcomes for maximum betting profits. Between 2007 and 2009, Perumal's network targeted Africa hard. They focused on countries with struggling economies, national teams that were underpaid, and football associations with minimal oversight. For Perumal, Africa wasn't just opportunity, it was a gold mine. He approached players quietly, sometimes through local agents, sometimes directly. A few $1,000s could buy almost anything. A penalty, a red card, a guaranteed final score. And it worked. In Zimbabwe, Perumal's involvement became so deep that he allegedly ran the entire national team operation during certain periods. According to a 2010 official report from the Zimbabwe Football Association, Perumal worked closely with players, coaches, and senior football executives. The report describes one match where Perumal walked into the locker room at halftime, told the coach to sit down, and personally instructed the team on how to play the second half. Not to win, but to lose by a specific margin that would maximize betting profits. 93 players and officials were eventually suspended in Zimbabwe. But by then, Perumal had moved on. He didn't stay in one place long. That was part of his strategy. Fix a few matches in one country, then move to the next before anyone noticed the pattern. By 2008, Perumal had expanded into Europe, targeting Finland, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Slovakia. These were leagues where salaries were low, but betting volume was high. In Finland, between 2008 and 2011, Perumal bribed 11 foreign players with 470,000 euros. This was to influence over 30 matches in the Finnish league. Most of the players were from Zambia and Georgia, young, struggling financially, and playing in a remote league near the Arctic Circle where nobody was watching closely. Perumal made it easy. He paid well, delivered on promises, and made sure players understood. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a business relationship. The Finnish operation was so successful that Perumal started getting comfortable. Too comfortable. He began using the same players repeatedly, the same methods, the same travel patterns, and investigators started noticing. But Perumal wasn't worried, because he had something bigger planned. Something that would make him a legend in the match-fixing world. He was going to rig a World Cup qualifier, and he claimed he did it twice. The first attempt involved Honduras. Perumal later wrote in his memoir that he helped Honduras qualify for the 2010 World Cup by fixing their qualification matches. Details remain murky. FIFA investigated but couldn't prove everything. But the second attempt? That one left a trail. November 14th, 2009, Nairobi, Kenya. Nigeria versus Kenya. A World Cup qualifier. Winner likely advances to South Africa, 2010. And Wilson Raj Perumal was about to make sure Nigeria won, no matter what it took. November 14th, 2009. Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi, Kenya. This date marked a pivotal moment in the shadowy world of match fixing. It was a World Cup qualifier between Nigeria and Kenya. Nigeria desperately needed a win to advance, while Kenya, having nothing left to lose, played without pressure. According to Wilson Raj Perumal's own confession, a notorious international match fixer, he personally ensured Nigeria secured that crucial victory. Perumal flew to Nairobi 3 days before the match with his associate, Manimaran Kalamuthu, who carried what he later described as loads of cash, approximately 7 million Kenyan shillings. They checked into the luxurious Safari Park Hotel, less than a kilometer from Kasarani Stadium. Coincidentally, the same hotel where the Kenyan national team was staying. Perumal claimed he had 3 Kenyan players on his payroll, 2 of whom were starters in the match. The deal was simple: ensure Nigeria wins. The payment for this arrangement was approximately 7 million Kenyan shillings, equivalent to about $90,000 at the time. Before the match, one of the Kenyan players sent Perumal an email confirming the arrangement, stating, "Listen, my friend, we are serious and ready for business. We promise you we won't let you down." The match began, and almost immediately, suspicious events unfolded on the pitch, raising eyebrows among spectators and commentators alike. Nigeria's first goal, scored by Obafemi Martins, appeared clearly offside, yet the referee inexplicably allowed it to stand, sparking immediate controversy. Later, Nigeria's second goal, by Yakubu Ayegbeni, was even more blatantly offside. Again, the referee made no call, further fueling suspicions of foul play. Kenyan fans grew furious, expressing their outrage by throwing water bottles onto the field. Despite the protests, the referee continued to make every decision in Nigeria's favor. Ultimately, Nigeria won the match 3-2. However, Perumal wasn't celebrating the victory as expected. The deal stipulated that Nigeria was to win by 2 clear goals, not just 1. This failure to meet the exact terms of the fix left Perumal enraged. After the match, the 3 Kenyan players arrived at Perumal's hotel room to collect their payment. According to Kalamuthu, Perumal was furious. He told them he had lost millions because they failed to follow instructions exactly. Kalamuthu later stated he didn't see Perumal pay them anything that night. Despite the botched payment, Nigeria had qualified for the World Cup, and Perumal already had another elaborate plan in motion. Earlier that year, he had struck a deal with Nigerian Football Federation officials at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja. The agreement was that Perumal would help Nigeria qualify. In exchange, his company, Football 4U International, would organize Nigeria's pre-World Cup training camp and 3 warm-up friendlies. These friendlies, Perumal planned, would all be fixed, providing further opportunities for his illicit operations. But the Kenya qualifier wasn't Perumal's only insurance policy for Nigeria's qualification. He had a backup plan. He also sent a letter to the Mozambique Football Association, offering $100,000 if Mozambique could beat or draw Tunisia in their final qualifier. If Tunisia won, they would leapfrog Nigeria and claim the World Cup spot. Perumal's strategy was to eliminate this threat. In a stunning upset, Mozambique, a massive underdog, shocked Tunisia with a 1-0 victory, securing Nigeria's qualification over Tunisia on goal difference. Nigeria advanced to the World Cup, a testament to Perumal's intricate and widespread network of manipulation. Perumal later wrote in his memoir, Top Corner, Confessions of an Asian Match Fixer, that his plan had worked. He boasted of being the unsung hero of Nigeria's qualification to the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa, and even Honduras. He claimed a personal achievement in getting 2 teams to qualify for the World Cup, a secret he couldn't tell anyone at the time. FIFA eventually launched an investigation. Documents surfaced, and players were questioned, slowly unraveling Perumal's web of deceit. George Owino, a Kenyan defender involved in the 2009 fix, was later banned from football for life for his match-fixing activities between 2009 and 2011. But by then, Perumal had already moved on to his next targets, as World Cup qualifiers alone were not enough to satisfy his ambition. Perumal also claimed he fixed matches at the Atlanta 1996 Olympics, the Beijing 2008 Olympics, and the 2007 Women's World Cup in China. His confessions extended to the 2008 Africa Cup of Nations, demonstrating the vast reach of his influence across major tournaments. In his most detailed confession, he revealed fixing multiple 2010 World Cup warm-up friendlies involving South Africa, Bulgaria, Colombia, Guatemala, Denmark, Brazil, and Tanzania. A FIFA report later confirmed many of these allegations, with excerpts appearing in the New York Times a month after Perumal's memoir was published, adding credibility to his claims. Perumal's company, Football for You International, arranged these friendlies. He personally selected the referees, often choosing Ibrahim Chaibu of Niger, a referee he had on his payroll. In one notorious case, Perumal organized a friendly between South Africa and Guatemala on May 24, 2010, which featured highly suspicious officiating. FIFA investigated, discovering syndicate influence and finding deposits of approximately $100,000 linked to the manipulation. In March 2016, FIFA banned 3 South African Football Association officials for colluding with Perumal, further exposing the depth of the corruption. But perhaps the most absurd operation, the one that opened this video, was the infamous fake Togo match. On September 7, 2010, a team claiming to be the Togo national team played Bahrain in a friendly, with Bahrain winning 3-0. However, Togo's Football Federation had no idea the match was even happening, because the team wasn't Togo at all. It was a group of imposters, organized under Perumal's network, a ghost team playing a ghost match. Bahrain's coach, Joseph Hickersberger, said afterward that the players were not fit enough to play 90 minutes, a clear sign of their amateur status. 5 Bahrain goals were disallowed for offside, all against the home team, making it glaringly obvious that the referee was part of the fix. The match was designed purely for betting fraud, allowing the syndicate to clean up as bookmakers took bets on the predetermined outcome. Nobody in Togo or Bahrain realized it was fake until afterward, a testament to the elaborate deception orchestrated by Perumal. This wasn't just match fixing anymore. This was theater, involving ghost matches and fabricated tournaments on an unprecedented scale. FIFA's head of security, Chris Eaton, later declared Perumal the most prolific match fixer they had ever tracked, a title that underscored his dangerous influence. But Perumal's luck was about to run out. By late 2010, he had made a critical mistake. He started owing money to his own syndicate. To recover losses, he tried to short the syndicate, keeping the $500,000 the bosses forwarded him to set up a fix, hoping the right team would win legitimately. It didn't work. Before long, Perumal owed $1 million to one boss, $500,000 to another, and $1.5 million to someone else, accumulating massive debts. The fake Togo match was an act of desperation, a desperate attempt to generate quick cash to cover his mounting debts. But it drew too much attention. Media coverage, FIFA investigations, and Interpol inquiries, making him a liability to his powerful syndicate. And Dan Tan, Perumal's boss, and a major figure in the betting syndicates, realized Perumal had become a significant risk. So, in February 2011, in a small town near the Arctic Circle, Dan Tan made a fateful decision. He was going to turn Perumal in. February 20th, 2011, Rovaniemi, Finland, a remote town near the Arctic Circle with a population of 60,000. A man from Singapore walked into the central police station, reporting that another Singaporean, Wilson Raj Perumal, was in Rovaniemi on a false passport. He offered no other information before leaving the station abruptly, leaving Finnish police puzzled by this random tip about a passport forger. Despite their confusion, they put Perumal under surveillance anyway, initiating an investigation into the mysterious tip. 3 days later, officers followed him to a French restaurant near the soccer stadium, where the local club, Rovaniemi Palloseura, had just finished a 1-1 draw. Officers watched as Perumal sat down with 3 Palloseura players, observing their interaction from a distance. They saw him scold the players, who visibly cowered in fear under his intense gaze. The next day, Finnish police detained Perumal for traveling on a forged passport, unaware of the true significance of their arrest. They had no idea who they'd just caught. But when they phoned officials at the Finland Football Federation and FIFA was contacted, everything changed. Chris Eaton, FIFA's head of security, flew to Rovaniemi within a week, having been hunting Perumal for 6 months. When Finnish investigators searched Perumal's devices, they found a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. His phone contact list contained 38 countries, and his laptop address book over 50, covering a quarter of FIFA's 209 member associations. Prosecutors charged him with fixing over 30 matches in Finland's league, with evidence showing he'd paid 470,000 euros to 11 players. Perumal faced years in prison, but he had information, and he knew exactly how to use it to his advantage. Perumal began cooperating with Finnish authorities, revealing the intricate structure of the Singapore syndicate. He named Dan Tan as the boss and explained how betting money moved through the Hawala system, an underground credit network used by organized crime. He described how fixers approached referees at international tournaments, how they organized ghost matches, and how they corrupted football associations from the inside. His testimony cracked open cases across Europe, leading to significant breakthroughs in match-fixing investigations. Italian courts indicted Dan Tan in December 2011. Hungarian authorities launched match-fixing probes, and Singapore arrested 14 of Perumal's former associates in 2013. But here's the twist. Perumal wasn't arrested because investigators finally caught him. He was arrested because Dan Tan, his boss, betrayed him, orchestrating his downfall. According to ESPN's investigation, the syndicate suspected Perumal had tipped off FIFA about certain operations, specifically 2 suspicious matches in Antalya, Turkey, generated 7 goals, entirely from penalty kicks, raising red flags. After one Latvian player missed a penalty, the referee ordered it retaken, further fueling suspicions. FIFA contacted one of the syndicate's front companies, leading Dan Tan and the other bosses to believe Perumal was talking. So Dan Tan authorized another syndicate member, Santia Raj, to hand Perumal over to police. Santia Raj sent a low-level runner to Rovaniemi, and that runner walked into the police station, ending Perumal's match-fixing career. It was the ultimate betrayal. The syndicate that made Perumal rich ultimately destroyed him to protect itself. Perumal was convicted in Finland and sentenced to 2 years, but he served only 1 year. This was because European authorities had bigger plans for him, recognizing his unique value. In 2012, Hungary requested Perumal's extradition, not to punish him, but to use him as a state witness. Perumal moved to Budapest under protective custody, living in a safe house and providing testimony that led to arrests across the Balkans. Singapore tried to extradite him, but Finnish police refused, citing European Union laws requiring them to send Perumal to Hungary instead. For years, Perumal lived in a strange limbo. A convicted criminal, a protected witness, a man who knew too much to be ignored, but too dangerous to be free. He published his memoir, Kelong Kings, in 2014, gave his first televised interview to CNN, and appeared in documentaries. He became, bizarrely, a semi-public figure, with film rights to his story optioned multiple times by Hollywood producers, though none made it to production. And then, in 2014, Perumal was arrested again in Finland, this time for a border offense and forgery. He served more time, got released, and went back to Hungary, seemingly having learned his lesson. Everyone assumed he'd learned his lesson, that he was done with crime. But they were wrong, because even while serving as a prosecution witness, even while supposedly cooperating with authorities, Perumal never stopped his illicit activities. In 2020, he was back in Sweden, trying to buy a Division I football team called Nyköping BIS. His partner was a 29-year-old Norwegian woman named Bella Istinis, who claimed to represent Sugar Computing, an esports programming company. The deal was signed on July 24th, 2020, marking a new chapter in his complex life. However, just 3 days later, Perumal and Istinis were arrested in Debrecen, Hungary, on charges of human trafficking. This final arrest closed another chapter in the extraordinary and often shocking story of Wilson Raj Perumal, the notorious game fixer.
July 27th, 2020, Debrecen, Hungary. Wilson Raj Perumal and Bella Istinis were arrested outside their home. The charge wasn't match fixing this time. It was human trafficking, specifically assisting several people to cross state borders for financial gain. For Perumal, this was the nightmare scenario, because human trafficking carries a sentence of 1 to 20 years in Hungary. If convicted, he'd likely be deported back to Singapore, where he'd been a fugitive since 2010. In 2010, a Singapore court had convicted Perumal of assaulting an auxiliary police officer, sentencing him to 5 years of corrective training. But while out on bail pending appeal, he fled using a forged passport. Singapore had been trying to extradite him ever since. In March 2021, Perumal wrote a desperate letter to his sister from his Hungarian jail cell. Quote, "Do you know if I lose this case, I will be deported back to Singapore. I cannot afford to lose this case. The noose is so tight around my neck." He also asked for money. Quote, "I will need around 75,000 Hungarian forints to sustain myself in prison. That will last for a whole month." His sister denied being in contact with him, telling reporters, "Once he left Singapore, I didn't keep in touch with him because he was already on the wanted list." Perumal spent nearly 5 years fighting the charges. His hearing took place in May 2025 in the Nyíregyháza Regional Court. It never made headlines in Budapest, but the Straits Times learned the outcome. Wilson Raj Perumal was convicted, sentenced to 11 years in prison. He's currently appealing, but a spokesperson for the Chief Prosecutor's Office in Hajdú-Bihar County confirmed the conviction stands. For the first time in decades, Perumal is facing serious prison time with no escape route. Singapore authorities say they'll pursue all legal avenues to bring him home after he serves his sentence. So what's the legacy of Wilson Raj Perumal? He fixed somewhere between 80 and 100 matches by his own count. Investigators believe the real number is much higher, possibly hundreds. He corrupted players, referees, and federation officials across 5 continents. He organized ghost matches that never happened. He allegedly influenced Olympic tournaments, World Cup qualifiers, and continental championships. His testimony helped dismantle parts of the Singapore syndicate. Dan Tan, his former boss, was detained in Singapore. Other associates were jailed in England, Finland, and Italy. But the system Perumal helped build, it didn't disappear. Match fixing remains one of football's biggest threats. Billions of dollars flow through illegal betting markets every year. Players in struggling leagues still get approached. Referees still get paid off. Federations still look the other way. Perumal proved something uncomfortable. You don't need to hack football. You just need to buy one person. A goalkeeper, a defender, a referee. One weak link, and the entire system collapses. FIFA now works closely with Interpol. They've implemented stricter anti-corruption measures. They monitor betting patterns. They educate players about approaches from fixers. But as Perumal himself said in his CNN interview, quote, "Football is no longer a sport. It's more like a business now. We're just trying to make money out of this business." That mindset, it hasn't gone anywhere. Perumal sits in a Hungarian prison now, 60 years old, convicted, disgraced, no longer the ghost controlling scorelines from hotel rooms across the world. But his name changed football forever. And the syndicates he worked with? They adapted. They're still out there, using his methods, targeting new leagues, finding new vulnerabilities. Because as long as there's money in football, there will be people trying to rig it.
Wilson Raj Perumal is currently appealing his 11-year sentence in Hungary. His final legal options are running out, and Singapore is waiting. But here's what most people don't realize. While Perumal sits in prison, the match-fixing networks he helped build are still operating. New fixers, new targets, same system. And there are more stories like this. Cases that never made headlines, scandals buried by federations, criminals who got away with it. If you want to stay updated on the dark side of sports, hit subscribe. Drop a comment with your theory. Do you think modern football is still being fixed behind the scenes? Thanks for watching. This is Foul Play.